What's going on? It's Leonard Roy coming at you. Gonna tag this to Martin G. Johnson, crime chaser, Chicago. Gonna tag it. Now, Martin, I appreciate the debate that you allowed me to have with that fellow from Virginia. I'm like, okay, I was born and raised in Chicago, which everyone that knows of me know this. I mean, seeing as I'm, like kind of like a house music DJ legend in that city. Yeah. That incidentally was not a Confederate state at any given time. Now, you had this guy, he's a Democrat, and he's from Virginia, a state that seceded from the Union because they wanted to keep blacks in slavery. And who was that army? Oh, they were Democrats. The Confederacy? Yeah. Now this guy's talking about the Dixiecrats and they switched and this and that. It's like, and going back in history, I'm sitting here like, okay, if you don't know where you came from, you don't know where you're going. See, that's what the problem is. He thinks he's a smart person. And I'm just sitting there like, okay, Virginia. Well, your major city in Virginia is Richmond, right? Okay. What is Richmond, Virginia famous for? Cemeteries, war monuments, this James River that goes through it. Because Fort Lee is in Virginia. I was up there at Fort Lee, the military installation. I don't know if it's still called Fort Lee. They got politically correct and they were like, oh, we're not going to have military bases named after Confederate soldiers, thus and so. Anyway, I'm sitting there like, this guy here, it's like, really? And he's talking about, and then he started name calling. See, that's when you know you've won. When somebody starts throwing jabs, and it's like, oh, okay, you're throwing jab name calling, trying to get personal. It's like, oh, more than likely, his family, way back in the day, were slaves. Mine were not, Yeah. I mean, we know our family, we know our doggone lineage and everything. We weren't slaves. Didn't own slaves either. No, not in Louisiana. No. We only had two members of the family that moved out of Louisiana. Okay. And that would be my mom after she was married to my dad and my uncle. But he moved west. He went to the West Coast. Other than that, everybody else stayed there. So it's pretty up until Hurricane Katrina, and that displaced all the family. Now the majority is in Texas. Anyway, this dude is talking all this malarkey, and I'm like, okay. Has no idea. I was born and raised in a city that the mayors have been Democrat. In the city I grew up in, Chicago, almost 100 years already. He's talking about all this stuff that happened with, oh, the LBJ did this, LBJ did that. Okay, if that's the case, then where did they get the idea for the movie Claudine? And the welfare woman coming, checking in. And where did all that come from? See, you got these people. I believe, this is just me. Now, I'm no scientist. I believe there is something in the genetic makeup of not former slaves. Their families were slaves back in the day. And it's something in their DNA that got passed down generation to generation to generation up until today and moving forward. They still have that slave mentality. I believe it's some type of memory system that's in the DNA of slavery, and they are a conquered people, and they just can't do any different. They just can't. I don't. I don't. And note, he said something about Black History Month and he brought up President Nixon. And I was like, no. It became a recognized month under President Gerald Ford in 1976. Nixon was not president in 1976. Oh, he had nothing to say then. I was like, look at the facts. Back it all up. Back it all up. See, you always get these clowns. And they throw jabs in the process too, right? So I knew I was going to irk him in my little way. Just be like, well, you know what? Light skin privilege is real. Like, ooh, it just eats you up, don't it? Yes, eat you up, eat you alive. You know, not having all those law enforcement issues with them trying to George Floyd you, Rodney King you. Yeah, well, anyway, Martin, thank you for the time you invested. I know you're not going to run this video on your stream because it would cause too much controversy with one of your guests that calls in. But like I said, 1 minute apiece, and as soon as he started throwing jabs, we weren't 5 minutes in. 1 minute per debater. We weren't 5 talking points in as of minutes, and he started throwing jabs. And you even had to tell him, hey, I just heard you call them names again. Now, this is the second time you did it. I heard it the first time. I didn't say nothing. I let that slide. Now you're doing it again. Now I'm going to have to give him more time to rebuttal because we said we wasn't going to get messy like that. Deuces.